Hello, this is Joshua for Frost Dragon Designs, and today I'd like to talk to you about my Virgo Zodiac Cat Hard Enamel pin. This pin is part of Series 4 of my larger Black Cat RPG collection. In Series 4, I based the first 12 pins off of the 12 astrological signs of the Western Zodiac. This pin was inspired by Virgo, the Virgin. So let's get into the design. So to start with, I took some artistic liberties with the concept for this pin. Virgo being the Virgin, I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So I took the idea of virgin and kind of changed it to pure, and then I kind of changed that to virtuous, and then shifted from virtuous to righteous, and we got to this kind of angelic concept. Now, if the wings themselves look familiar to you, that is because those were the same wings that I used for the black wing pins in my 2019 Kickstarter called Black Feathers. The wing pins themselves have been retired, but I thought that the designs might be helpful for me in this case, just to give me a little bit of a jump start, so that I didn't have to spend quite so much time on the wings, as I really wanted to be spending my time working on the kitty. Now, I think a lot of the early design notes that I was trying to get through here for this angelic kitty came from Renaissance paintings of the Archangel Michael. He would typically be wearing a breastplate, have a large sword, probably a long sword. In this case, I went with even larger, a claymore, a Scottish sword. But, you know, they kind of had that look of the breastplate with the long tunic underneath of it. I think he was also frequently depicted as having some sort of like a red cloak or other red fabric billowing around him. And I think that may be where I kind of got the idea to have the red wings rather than white wings. But as I kept working on the design, it started getting further and further away from that kind of Renaissance angelic look, which is probably for the best because that isn't really the aesthetic that most of the Black Cat RPG designs have. I particularly was kind of having some trouble figuring out what to do with the head. I knew I wanted to have a halo behind the head, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to have some sort of a headband or a helmet. I eventually settled on having a hood that at first obscured the eyes, and I kind of had this idea of maybe there could be like a border pattern with eyes on it, which is, you know, kind of a head nod to the biblical angel kind of look with the many eyes all over it kind of thing. But that didn't end up working either because at this scale, I just wasn't convinced that that border would really read as eyes, and it might not have the kind of mysterious look that I was hoping for. So instead of that, I eventually ended up raising the edge of the hood up so that you could see the character's actual eyes, and I just did away with the eyes on the border altogether. One thing that I find particularly interesting about how this design turned out is that it is very angular and very pointy when you look at the overall silhouette, which at first you wouldn't necessarily think fits with the angelic theme here, but the more I think about it in the context of the Black Cat RPG things, the more it makes sense to me that that's kind of something I did. I mean, angels are often depicted as androgynous, but with a feminine skew to them. And within the Black Cat RPG stuff, the more feminine looking characters have pointy hands and pointy feet. So I just find it interesting that, I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but the overall design ends up having lots of pointiness to it, which in this context, kind of adds to the femininity of that androgynous angel look. I don't know. It's just weird how these things kind of come together when you're not even thinking about it. And you go back and look at it and it's just like, well, that works. And I often wonder whether, on some level I was aware of what I was doing, or if, I'm just piecing it together after the fact and saying, hey, this works because fill in the blank. Honestly, it could go either way. I think what's really important, though, at the end of the day, is that it's a cool looking design and I'm happy with how it turned out. By this point in the video, most of the design is pretty much set, but I was still playing around to see how I could kind of, level it up just a little bit more. I thought for a little while that perhaps I could have some sort of a flame or glowing effect on the sword itself. None of that really looked how I wanted it to. None of it really conveyed the kind of unearthly majesty that I kind of wanted for this character, so I decided to just not do that in general. Instead, I turned my attention a bit more toward the halo. In my mind, this is like an ally type character, maybe not a player character. This is maybe someone who's coming to the aid of the party, swooping in to save the day from, certain doom. If the party isn't doing so well in that final boss fight, the DM kind of throws in that, hey, remember that angelic ally we spoke with a couple sessions ago? Well, hey, here they are to save your butts. I think that's really where the design process for the Black Cat RPG pins is different than pretty much any other pin that I work on, in that these are characters, they have motives, they have personalities, and I really think that sets them apart and makes them special. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. I will have a new pin design video every week. Sometimes it's Black Cat RPG stuff, sometimes it's just cute cat stuff, sometimes it's just something different. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great week.